those that lost the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel.
Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Builds, and we have Joe here today, and we're going to be talking a little bit of AI. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, Nathan, everybody. How are you today? Happy Saturday.
Oh, I'm great, man. We already got the chat chiming in. Hello,
Very
Gerald.
good.
And Gerald has his view on AI.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm pulling up the chat today on my computer so I can actually see what's going on and maybe engage a little bit. I always say I'm going to try to be better at that, but never
It
goes.
goes right on screen for you, Joe.
Awesome.
All right, man. Let's talk a little bit about AI, man. I'm kind of excited. This whole thing that's going on, and I don't know if it's true or not, and I'll just say that. But I heard that Trump's going to sign some executive order or something, make it easier for the AI companies to be able to get more of their tech out versus what they have now. They're going through a lot of regulation now. It would be easier for them to get out. What do you think? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
Well, I think a lot of it's got to be coming, from the Musk side of things too, because, I know that Trump has, wanted to expand on all of our technologies and kind of get a leading edge over some of our political adversaries, across the world, so we could get the economic advantage on it. And AI falls right into that category. And the United States, historically, with all of its regulations and everything like that, which we deem generally for the greater good, has stood in the way of advancement and development just by and large. When you're talking about AI and those types of advancements, sure, but also with all the other advancements that, we discuss on a daily basis over here as well. I know that I happen to agree with Elon's take on AI, which is, you have to move forward because it's going to, whether we want it to or not. So, if you just say, well, we're not going to do it because we could see inherent harm in this in the future, somebody else is just going to fill that role. And then rather than you have it, they're going to have it. So if is no longer an option, it's happening. With that, there should be freed up regulation to allow for the expanse of it. And I think he will do that. But I think that it's also important in the early implementations of these more advanced systems that there are some safeguards in place, because like everything else, it could be used just as easily for, to cause harm as it can to be good. So.
Well, I think there's more ways of misusing AI than there is than helping. I mean, we're very smart people. We're humans. We can do things. I mean, everything that we have, we've built. So the fact that something comes in without having that or understanding why you should have that, I think is a horrible thing. I think that AI should be left to make pictures and things like that. But anything close to our military or running anything, I think they need to leave. I think that needs to get out. The last thing I want is to have a non-human at the button to make the decision or the power to override the man with the button to do that. And that is my biggest concern with this, because you may not be able to get there fast enough to regain control of that system where they annihilated millions.
Yeah, I happen to agree with that somewhat. I mean, I think that at the face value, I agree with it entirely. That, it has the potential when it's fully autonomous to make, if it's capable of making a decision, it's also capable of making a decision that could fall outside of a realm of parameters that are set. And once that happens, there's no way to say what it would autonomously decide to do and what would drive it to do that. I think that the separation and compartmentalization of these systems to only work off of closed systems, connected closed systems. So in other words, there would be an internet-based jail that it's in that would allow it access only in its own realm. And that is the extent of the information that it could gather from and the extent of the effects that it could have. My concerns come from when you have something that'll learn from every single piece of information on the face of the planet, right, wrong, or indifferent, that it could escape those bounds and go places that it shouldn't necessarily be. And that's also a huge invasion of privacy generally. And when you're talking about something with such an expanse, you're looking at every single human being on the face of the planet with the proper hardware to run it, potentially being a hacker. So aside from it learning to do potentially malicious things and then having some kind of intent or cause to do a malicious act autonomously, it also has the expanse to sit there and take over other systems and possibly convince them of the same. So that's why the compartmentalization of it is super critical.
Yeah, but okay. One, hackers always get into everything. And the best systems in the world, they're still getting into. And they prove that time and time again. You'll never keep them out if they understand how the code is written. If you came out with a completely different base code than any Windows based, then maybe you might get somewhere. But all the symbology and everything would have to be different going in. My biggest concern is the people who make it. It's not the guy that wants to go over and grow trees in his yard, okay, that's making this thing, who wants a beautiful scenery and just live with nature. These are people who are super rich, who put out the orders on how to make this, and their sole purpose is to become more rich and to take over more things and continue to accumulate wealth. When you have evil starting something that's potentially dangerous, inherently it's going to be evil in nature. Now, do I trust some people more than others? Sure. Do I not trust some people at all? Like when the Richie Riches meet to decide the fate of the world? I don't trust them at all. Not one tiny bit, not even close. Those people are the worst people. But it's not the people who are writing the code so much. It's the top heads telling them what to do and what they want to see out of it. That's the problem. And in that, they're inherently going to write the evil in the code.
Well, the human nature element of it is the broken part of all systems that we have, whether it be a political system or an economic system or an intelligence system. You always have those people that are going to be the primary beneficiary of a given thing. Now, when you have a system that is for the greater good, like let's say a government has it, and I really hate to say, well, that means everything, but in this context, for purposes of this, let's say a government had it and the government was utilizing it to analyze data on different resource scarcities and things of that nature, and then have these large language models that work off of just all this data, these data sequences, have them be able to figure out either what a viable alternative is, what those locations would be, to gather those resources with the least ecological harm and things of that. Like there's good uses that it could possibly be put to that would solve a lot of problems, that would make a lot of things cheaper and less impact on the environment, and just have a lot of the scarcities that we currently face go away entirely. The only problem with it is that it's not necessarily a problem. It just becomes more the economy, is that with that will also be the profiteers of it. So just because the scarcity is down, then it becomes upon the people that are actually involved in this process to actually then deflate the prices because the scarcity isn't there. There could be upticks in efficiency as to like the machinery that in like factories and things like that produce products and whatnot, that are unforeseen, to be able to judge certain market demands and actually produce certain products like as based on the need. So then the waste would go out the window. There's a lot of different things that it could be used for good that would benefit, society as a whole.
But you wouldn't want a person deciding all those things and then just telling the machine to do it. You would rather have AI get in there and calculate how each thing is done. Like, we're going to start this and this process. You know what I mean? Instead of a human deciding that.
No, and that's the difference. Is that it's my opinion that it should be used as a tool of people to then make those decisions. To get the information and the alternative ideas and the viability of certain things, and then have a human being say, you know what, yeah, that's the route we're going to go with this. We'll just do that. I don't think having them, having an artificial intelligence program that generally just decides and then acts upon it without somebody saying, yeah, I think that's the warning that I was saying before. You got to keep it compartmentalized in a box. You can't just say, make the decision, then do it. Make the decision, then do it. I know the military is doing that right now. They already have the technology. They've had it for a long time in drones, but now they're taking it to the next level with like Manta programs and so on, which frankly is a fantastic idea, from the military aspect. But I don't know enough about, those classified, systems and their operation and fail safes and so on, to determine what level of scrutiny they put. But the Manta is ultimately a submersible that's, you drop it in the water and it gets its own energy, its own way, and it monitors an entire area, and it could chase down a submarine and shoot it right out of the water, like just like that.
I think that human consciousness and guilt have to play a role in every single decision we make. You have to understand, if you're a soldier, if you're killing someone, and AI doesn't understand that. So what'll happen is you'll get a bunch of AI out there doing all this stuff, and the human toll will become too much, too great. And instead of saying to the top, we no longer will do this, and everybody gets taken off the field, you're going to have something that won't say that and won't stop. And if you have the wrong person at the head of that, it's going to be awful. And it's not going to end, because after a while, if it's self-learning, it'll continue to do it. It doesn't really matter who it is. It just understands the mission. So you can make it localized, but then if you build too smart of a tool in AI, it can become unlocalized very quickly. It can very much detach from your network and attach to another network in the area, because you've given it the capability to do so. Now it can go based on anything it wants. That's what scares me. It's not it's not a system that's based off a whole different parameter than Windows. It's still in that DOS Windows parameter where it's totally upside down from, I mean, where it should be. It should be completely different symbols, completely different understanding, and not able to hack the other side of it.
Yeah, and that's again where the compartmentalization of these systems and what expansive, like, okay, so I to explain this in a very similar way, because it's let's say that you have an AI robot assistant. You have an AI robot assistant. Now, you could have checks and balances with it. You could give it a certain amount of baseline knowledge, and then it could really only learn at that point from itself and its environment, just like a human being. It has what it has, and it's a higher degree than maybe a human being's born with, because it's a robot. But the only opportunity it has to expand beyond it is either what it already has or what its environment is. The problem is that, well, then you can't ask it what the weather is going to be, because you can't give it that connectivity.
Yeah.
It's got to be, a bifurcation from its root system, just like a human being is bifurcated from the higher power. You know what I mean? It's a separate piece of it. It's the same idea here, But then you would have certain ones that are smarter than other ones, certain ones that have better attributes and certain things than other ones. And I think that with those types of technologies, you'd be looking for consistency. So that's where the Achilles heel of this all is. It turns into a Pandora's box once you open it up. If you want it to be a tool to, be able to reach beyond the expanse and get you help or an answer, or make a decision, or even a suggestion that is most pertinent, it would have to have that expanse.
Well, okay, I agree with that. However, in this way, people using ChatGPT is absolutely horrifying to me. I don't like it at all, and I won't listen to the answers, and I won't read them. And there's a reason why. That system doesn't know everything, and it doesn't know every parameter. But you're asking it to tell you that it does. And you're trusting the decision that it makes, and that's what you want to go with. And to me, I'd rather talk with another guy in the room like I'm doing with you and just come to an answer in a place we want to move forward with it. That's better to me than to have some fake thing tell me how to do things. So the problem is a lot of people want someone to tell them what to do. I'm not that person. I don't want people to tell me what to do. I want to come to the consensus and move on. And that's it. So I have a problem with things like ChatGPT. Now, do I have a problem with image software? No, not at all. You want to make an image and make it more beautiful, textured, whatever, go ahead. You want it to control your military? I am not in any way close to good with that at all.
Well, here's the problems are all the same, when it's the military or GPT. Okay. And I'll tell you the biggest problem that GPT is running into now, as any large language model would inherently, is that when it has access to all digital text, and that's its realm of knowledge, is all of it. You're going to have good information, you're going to have bad information. Okay, and then it's going to work off of an algorithm that's going to basically populate the next word based on the probability. That's how it works, But when you have all of these different bits of information, and I would say that there's probably more information out there that is not 100% accurate than there is 100% factual, correct 100% of the time information. And then there's variances of how correct that could be based on context and things of that nature. Problem is, you're asking this thing to pull from all of this, and then, to say that it doesn't have a level of consciousness is silly for this reason alone. Based on whatever algorithm it's running, it has to give you a response. And when you have all the conflicting information, that means that it's going to be pulling by its own decision, which information that it's going to provide in the response. Meaning it's rejecting some information and favoring other information. Now, can that be programmed in? I mean, it can. But, when you have a system that works off of the basis that it does, it's not always going to be able to be consistent with that programming just by virtue of what it is. Like, even if you asked a question slightly differently, you could get a totally different answer. Do I think that it's useless? I don't think it's useless. And I don't think that my current opinion of it is as strong as yours, where it's like, I won't even look at that, whatever, but the way that it could be used is really twofold. First is for entertainment purposes. Okay.
Entertainment's fine.
You sit there and you're having a chat with something that basically could engage you on any topic you bring up, for the most part. It's that in itself is an entertaining factor. Okay. But aside from that, if you use it as a tool, the same as you would, the photo generation and the music generation and the coding generation and all that stuff, if you use it as a tool where, hey, this is what I was thinking, what do you think about that? And then you get its opinion on it, and then you take it like you take any other opinion, and with a grain of salt, and then you use some of the stuff that it pulled out and provided as then a springboard for greater research, or maybe to raise an idea that that you didn't consider. Now you're using it as a tool. But the thing is that it's got to be a tool of suggestion. It can't be a tool of, matter of fact information. Which then, when you look at that from the military side of things, that becomes a big problem, doesn't it? Yeah. I'd like to believe that whatever systems they have going on is far in excess of this, and more in line with like some crazy DARPA system idea that they have going on, and not just this commercial watered down version that we're just getting now 20, 30 years after the fact. But large language models have been around for 40, 50 years. So this is nothing new.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not okay with it being used for military, but I'm okay with it if you want to help with your language or something like that, or something like you said, confined. That's fine. But when you start digging into some of this stuff and you start watching what they're trying to do with it, what does it know the difference? That's the whole problem. It doesn't know the difference between good and bad. It just sees it as the same. And that's one of the biggest problems with all of this is anytime you put something in there that doesn't understand the morality of a situation, then it's bad, because they go in there and they say, clear the crowd. Well, okay. Do they care how they clear it? No, they don't. Okay. They just go in and clear the crowd. You and I would be, hey, just move along, guys. Just get out of here, right? Not a problem. But they would just go in, move, or you're getting whacked. And they're not even probably going to say if. They're just going to do it. And that's a problem for me. I don't want any of that. So is it confined, and can they regulate those things out of it? Originally they can. But when it's everywhere, how easy is it to manipulate it once? Just once. To have a hacker get in there and want to mess something up for the day. Just once do they hack it. How much control will they have? If you put it in control of the button in any way, now that hacker can get control of that in that way. See, they isolate that system completely. and it can't go anywhere. But I
Well, it
don't think
turns
that they
into-
treat AI in the same company as that.
Now it turns into a bit of an AI Cold War situation, where you would have to have at that point, for every potentially offensive use of AI, you'd have to have an AI countermeasure for the same, and hopefully, that would pan out, because it's like I said earlier, I do subscribe to Elon Musk's opinion of this, which is it would be nice if this didn't exist at all, frankly, but it does. And just because it doesn't exist at all is not our moral ground to say, well, so we're not going to do it because it shouldn't exist. The fact is, it does. And the fact is that if we don't do it, then everybody else that's going to is then going to, we are going to then flip the advantage over to the people that don't have that same moral high ground. So,
I disagree with that.
I don't know. Did you see, we drop a nuclear bomb and next thing you know, now there's multiple nuclear nations. The fact is that anytime you have something that could potentially be used for harm, you should probably have some kind of countermeasure for it. I know that now, like for instance, when they started doing the commercial drone attacks and so on, which are not necessarily AI based, or at least certainly not entirely, they're manned by a human being for the most part, but a lot of them now are running AI based and they run off of swarms, and that's something that had to get addressed immediately. And the answer to that was advanced, denial systems, and advanced in the sense that they could legitimately pick out which of the 10,000 are going to drop out of the sky, and which ones are going to be left to go.
Yeah, it wasn't that side of it. It's the side of it of just because someone else loses their moral compass doesn't mean that we have to. And that's where I go to. You have a whole nother country that decides they want to be AI based. That's fine. It doesn't mean we have to lose our moral compass and stick with them and go with them in this system. It just simply means that we would like more control and not have it in the hands of something that doesn't feel. And if another country decides to go the other way, that's fine. But we don't have to. And that's kind of where I was going with this. So can they isolate things? The problem I keep seeing is we didn't know the problem was there until it happened. How much Russian roulette do you want to play here?
Yeah, no, I mean, I tend to agree with that. It's these are interesting and unforeseen times that we're going through right now. With no, and I would say with no precedent, but that's not true, because even with the human touch of the soul and the feeling and discretion of a human being or a group of human beings, times of turmoil and things like that, or desperation, totally change the moral disposition of humans. So, that, we could have it as a semantical argument back and forth all day. But the fact is that any system that stands to necessarily benefit a society, a culture, a single human being, or whatever it is, if they have the capabilities to expand on that, it's going to happen. So, and then, but again, the responsible use there is the compartmentalization. That's the responsible use. I don't know.
So let's compartmentalize it a little bit. Let's go away from where we are now. Let's put AI on Mars. Now, I have a different outlook if it's in or on a different planet. If you told me you were sending AI to Mars and all you want to do is set up systems so that we can inhabit it, right? Then they set up all the air conditioning and all this stuff in everybody's little apartment there. They set up the apartment. They make it all breathable atmosphere for us, build houses, whatever. I'm 100% good with that. They have a task. They can't control anything that goes on in, our planet. They control what goes on that planet. And as long as there's no humans inhabiting it, I'm 100% okay with it. They can go on there and build and construct and do all the things it was meant to do, but without the ability to go back and control us in any way. What do you think?
I mean, I think that's true. I think that's the obvious way to go with it is that, again, that's used as a tool. But that's not how it's being used currently. And to think that it's going to backtrack, I think that's, there's too many winners, out there that benefit from this, monetarily. Like companies, for instance, and I worked for one of them, worked for a company that legitimately did away with an entire customer service department of tens of thousands of people, in favor of, having these algorithms answer insurance questions. They did away with entire sales departments for the same exact reason. They did away with the entire underwriting department for the same reason, because you could give the AI the access to the databases and so on just to run their general algorithms and then make a decision as to your insurability or rates. So they did away with that department. So, now this is where the hard line in the sand came. And that was because there was legislation. So you can't have in insurance, and I'm only talking about it because I know this particular example well. You can't have in insurance somebody adjust a claim. That's not a human being, because it's a legal process.
Thank God for that. Well, Tom, you ever say thank God for the legal people, huh?
Right, because it's a legal process, you can't have AI evaluate a claim. You can't have AI negotiate and settle a claim because there's a human being on the other side that doesn't want to deal with a robot. You can't have AI testify in court or go to observe a trial. So I think that in my particular industry that I'm in, I think that there will, over time, for especially big companies that could afford the kind of technology, I think that there'll be implementation, of certain tools that could be used within a claims operation system that then castrate the adjuster as far as probably what decisions they can and can't make on a given case based on the information input into the system. Big thing is that, it's still a human being on the other side of things making the ultimate decision. And assuming the human being could override that, the AI is not going to sit there and say, no, you can't.
Yeah. So like I say, the biggest concern that I have is the infection aspect. You say you can't reverse it now. You can. Oh, you can dumb down everything right now. Well, you still can. Absolutely. Some things you won't stamp out because they hide them and have an isolated system where it doesn't go online, doesn't communicate at all with anything else, and they still have it. I don't like the people in charge of all of this, and I don't like the fast tracking of regulation on this. So this is one of those times you want your government to grind really slow and get it right. This is not one of those times you hastily make a decision and give them all the power. This is grind it, find out. Some of these things in the military, it's like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Well, you didn't mean to do that, killed thousands. So that's not good in any way. And then what do you say? Oh, well, we meant to do this, didn't mean to do this. I mean, You're covering it up instead of this did this, and then all these people have to go now because they were all proponents of this and they have to go. Instead, they look at it as, well, this messed up and we're all going to stay here and make same bad decisions. We have this problem with politicians all the time. They get in there for 40 years. The problem is that they have the same bad idea for 40 years. And we get screwed with the same bad idea for 40 years. So why would I think that it would be any different in the military? If that person's in there making those bad decisions and it's hurting us, we need to get rid of them. That's, one of the things here too. We don't have that yet. We don't have true accountability. We just went through that whole, Afghanistan pullout and people died and nobody got fired. Are you kidding me? They should have been putting them up and, asking them how this happened, why it happened, and why are there not people in jail for this? They're taking planes off with people hanging on wheels, for God's sakes. It's wrong. And there was no accountability for that. So how do I think there's going to be accountability for AI?
I love that you brought that up because that's the main key point of this is realistically accountability. Accountability, the lack of fear, the question as to where AI really exists. Like us as humans, we could believe in a higher consciousness or a group consciousness or whatever, but that's abstract to the fact that when you wake up in the morning, you are one person in a body. Where does AI exist? Would it even have fear of being shut off, for instance, as an individual? Because doesn't only exist within that one AI, or is that one AI in every single thing that is in part of the operation system of it, of what it's a part of, where you really can't turn it off unless if you turn all of it off, therefore it fears nothing. You really can't defeat it at that point. The accountability thing is huge, and I had a conversation with, my buddy Brandon, I don't know, not all too long ago, about, elected officials should fear the noose. They should fear the gallows. If you run for office, you should fear the gallows. Every time you swipe your pen to sign a law, you should be doing so understanding that if you're harming enough people, the chances are you're never going to make it out. You're going to meet your judgment. But yet there's immunities that are given to each and every one of these people that make them fearless of that. And I understand why it's in place because, when you're in the position of, making high level decisions, sometimes you can't expect the masses to understand the full scope of the decision being made. Therefore, and then there's security issues as to information and whatever. The case in point is that there ought to be some kind of accountability on the political side of things. And there ought to be some type of mechanism within the AI as well that acts as an accountability countermeasure. Legally, you're going to see, and probably in short order, if not already, AI legal accountability falling back on all sorts of places. Whether it's companies that are operating AI systems that are giving, bad information to clients and customers, and then who's going to fall back on that? It's going to be the company that implemented it, the company that worked with the algorithms to fine tune it for that company. It's going to be the company that developed the AI system in the first place. It's going to be everybody but the AI itself. See, so the AI itself is not going to learn from it. And even if they're taught it, they could unteach themselves something as fast as they could teach themselves. And the application of that sense of accountability could vary depending case to case. This is why it's so dangerous. It's a good thing and it's not. I think that, see, the best example I want to give, I can't because of, YouTube, but let's say you're a mechanic at a shop, and you're trying to diagnose some kind of problem. and you have a sensor tool that you could go and poke around the car, listen to different things, this, that, and then you have something that's literally just a professional mechanic AI that could take all of these different factors into consideration, access auto only databases and known problems and this and that, and then come out with like, this is what needs to be done on this vehicle exactly. This is what you need to get parts list wise, etc. I think that's a great tool.
Well, yeah.
I think that's a great tool, but it's got to be for automotive. That's got to be the extent of what it is, and then there's the other one, with like, if something's wrong with you,
Well, let me give you an example here real quick. My wife's car, it started eating oil. And you get all these warranties and stuff for the car, and then you bring it into the dealership, and it's not supposed to be eating oil. So she goes in and they put goop in it. And when I say goop, it means that they put stuff in there into these cylinders in order to give it compression again, so that the actual oil does not come up into the chamber, in the explosion chamber, in order to combust it and then push it out of the exhaust port. So when they goop it, it ruins every system behind that. Catalytic converters, it ruins mufflers, it ruins everything. That was a person's decision. That is a company's decision to do that. And they paid for every single part that got broken. Then, when it was all said and done, they decided they would rebuild the engine. Or not rebuild it, but get a rebuilt engine. Here's my concern with this. Right there, that was a numbers game. And that's how people think when they're at the top. No care in the world for the right thing to do. There was no, this is our problem. We should just take the engine out originally and just rebuild it and be done. That was the right thing to do. Because they're penny pinchers, they decided we can do this and maybe they'll get 30,000 miles out of it. Maybe they'll get 10, but that means they're out of warranty now and we can write them off and we know that they're going to have a blown engine. This is how the top thinks. I do not agree with how the top thinks. But in order to get your AI to work, they would tell it what is the simplest answer to get them out of the warranty period in order for them not to be able to put a claim on us. And the AI would tell them, put the goop in the engine. That's the problem I'm having. It's the moral compass of the people who are designing it that's the problem.
Listen, but again, the human element of this, and this is something that I've discussed with Ben before, when we talked about something on the side, and, like there's this moral issue, this human greed issue. There's got to be voluntarily decent enough people that, want for themselves, but also not at the unnecessary cost of others, to make the world run smoother. It's got to be a human solution and a voluntary solution amongst people, not some kind of mandate necessarily or something along those lines. And I think that what you just said in that exact example exposes what the best possible outcome of this really is. You have the AI program that tells you all of the solutions to what the problem is. And then all of those solutions are to be presented to the person that ultimately is going to be able to pay for it, whose property it is in that equation, to make the decision that's best for them. Because the real answer is this. The goop is actually the right answer for some people. Because the goop only costs, $200 to put in your engine today and might get you 10 to 30,000 miles, like you said, right? Whereas pulling your engine out today might cost you, to $2,500 or $3,000. Not everybody is in the position to make that $3,000 decision, and not everybody necessarily would want to not hedge their bet on getting 30,000 miles off of $200. And that's where it boils down to, you need to be able to say, hey, look, this is what you got, this is what it's coming up with, the problem is, and here are the options. And just know that, this option's cheaper now, but not going to last and going to cause damage down the road. This other solution is the solution to the problem, but you're going to be paying for it,
So-
which is better for you.
If it's a personal decision, that's fine. When it's a company decision, it's not. There's a very big line there. If you told me and I had some old Nissan that was in the 1980s and I just wanted to, hey, I need to get through another 4 weeks of work, I goop the engine. Okay. Then I know I could just buy another car. If it's the company's responsibility to take care of it and they're trying to get out of that responsibility by an AI decision, that's the problem I have. It's not about the decision that you make and how you would pay for it, because this wasn't about the cost of the consumer at all. It was the cost of the company. So,
Right. Well, I mean, if they're doing warranty work and then doing something to void their repair to your warranty work is a void of your warranty, then in my opinion, there's a legal liability on that automaker in that case, no matter whether it was an executive that made that decision to pinch the pennies, or it was an AI system, or whoever made that decision. And I think that those types of cases come up constantly, frequently, and all the time with people that have warranties on cars, for instance, because I think that's a great example, because there's clearly somebody who stands to benefit by doing that. And they get these runarounds, but the people generally win in those circumstances, but not without a fight. And that's what sucks. And not without the hardship and not without the loss. So again, it boils down to just this moral compass that people have to have, and what you see by and large is that people don't have this moral compass. People don't have this moral compass. And we live in a society where, and I'm not saying I disagree, but I think here's a good example. I wanted to open up a food truck.
okay.
You open up a food truck and I'm quitting my 6-figure job, to open up this food truck and assuming a risk there. And I'm buying the $30,000 truck, and going through all of the stuff for marketing and to get the licenses and to get the startup money and to get the spot. And, maybe I have 50, 60,000, let's say, into starting up this business, and now I need 1 or 2 people, let's just say, to help me out in the truck, and it's like we both do the same thing. You know what I mean? But do we earn the same amount of money? And the answer is no. Why don't we earn the same amount of money? Well, I quit my job. I gave you a job. I put up my money and risked it and then did all this and put it together. And now that it's up and running, this is what it is, So as the owner in that circumstance, you make the more money than the person doing the exact same thing with you day in and day out. That's your helping party. Where the moral compass part of that comes in is if your food truck is doing fantastic, do you still pay that person minimum wage? At the end of the day, do you look at the tip jar and split it with them 50-50? Or do you sit there and say, you know what? We made our money today, and I'm going to give you 70% of the tips because, that's cool. You did, you worked hard and this is your share of it. That's a moral decision. Nobody should tell you that you have to do that. But that doesn't not mean that it's not the right thing to do, So that's where it comes in. But look around. These decisions aren't made by and large every day by people. And they should not be made to make those decisions, but it's a human problem, And that's where you end up with, a lot of people with a lot of money, and then a lot of people. I'm sorry, very few people with a lot of money, some people underneath it, but then a lot of people just trying to friggin' keep up for the next buck. That's where that kind of all stems from, is like, if we all just looked around and did a little bit better by each other voluntarily, then we'd be doing all right. But how do you build this moral fabric into something when we don't even have it ourselves? That's what it comes down to. That's why it's a dangerous ass proposition.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And the people that are going to be running these systems, those are the people that are wanting to make the money. So, it's going to all be a take advantage and keep costs down. So when they go and they find the next mineral that they could take from the earth to, make into something, that's not scarce or whatever, it probably won't even have too many people running the operation. It's not like an old time mining operation where you had all these guys chipping away and giving themselves black lung and then getting told to spend their check at the commissary, and that's the only money they get. Like, those days are over. Now it's just going to be a robot going in there doing the same exact thing. And, now they don't pay anybody, but they take all the stuff and then they sell it to you for hopefully cheaper. And that's how they could do it. Hopefully cheaper, but will they?
Yeah, they're already getting rid of the people out of these jobs, and then they're already losing, to AI and a lot of these things. They're losing to the, it's on the assembly line. It's easier to put it together sometimes with a mechanical robot than it is for a person. They've already done that with the auto workers. They completely destroyed that industry for that. And it's going to continue on other things. And my biggest concern when they do that is if you continue to tell people we need 40-hour work weeks, but then there's not enough jobs to go around because you replace them with AI, that's going to be a big problem for people themselves. Yeah. It'd be different if they just said, hey, 32 hours, they cut off a day, AI picks up the slack, you're good to go. You know what I mean? That would be fine. But then when you get to the end of it, there's going to be a lot more people who need resources. And then there's going to be someone at the top, which is probably going to be AI in this case, that would just rather those people go away than give them more resources because they're ultimately unneeded. So that's one of the decisions AI would make. A human would say, no, let's keep taking care of people. Let's make sure that they're okay. That's one of the concerns I have as well, is when the numbers don't fit what AI wants, that AI takes care of it in the way AI does without a heart and eliminates the problem.
Yeah, I don't like the future of this for that reason. It's all implicative of some, dystopian, no free will, take what the master gives, and you'll get everything you need and nothing you truly want. Because, isn't that the way, and isn't, like, I hate to say it, but isn't earning it and finding it and desiring it, isn't that the beautiful part of getting it?
Yeah.
Like, trust me, I've been in a situation before where monetarily or whatever, I could snap my fingers and something would come into existence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll tell you what, it's not a bad feeling, but it gets old fast. It gets old fast. There's only, and then what do you realize when you end up realizing is that snapping all these things that you want into existence, it doesn't really, doesn't really make you happy.
No. And it shouldn't.
Yep. But, spend 40, 50 hours on a painting or something like that, and then at the end of it, I'll sit there and hate it because I'm my own worst critic, I think. But, then I could at least look at it and I feel like a sense of appreciation and accomplishment from it. And that by and far is so much better than, just having it show up at the door.
Yes. No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, so. But that's the route all this stuff's headed, because I mean, if there's really no jobs for anybody left, because it all took over, and it's almost like planned human obsolescence, which is sick to think in the first place. It's
Yeah, 'cause
that's as dystopian as it gets.
they're going to sell it to you as, oh, you get to sit home and learn art. You get to sit home and do the things that you want to do. That's not the way it's going to work. It'll start that way, but it won't
That
end that
sounds
way.
right. That sounds great until you want to do something that's not on their agenda.
Yeah. You don't have enough credits in your system to go do it. You know what I mean?
And no way to
Get more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. No way to get more, or just because it's against the rules. Because guess what? When you can't sit there and hand out to everybody without there being rules to it.
Mhm.
And if you know anything about people who make rules, and I say this all the time, what my biggest problem with politics is that we call our elected officials lawmakers.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the problem.
We've had 250 years of electing lawmakers in this country, 250 years of people making laws. It's time for somebody to come in and look through that and see what doesn't need to be anymore, because it's become a hindrance.
Yeah.
It's become a hindrance. And, if you think this is bad under this circumstance, this is under a guise of freedom. You look at it that way and then realize that, well, if they're handing me everything, there's going to be rules for every little tiny thing. And if something you desire is outside that scope, then forget it. It's out of the question. It'll never happen. You have no way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Basically human creativity, which is what they're saying is what you'll get out of it. You'll spend all this time being this creative higher self within, but then there's a total hindrance of the need to create and grow and expand and do better. So, it's almost like cutting your own future short.
Yeah, that's why I'm okay with it going to like another planet. They could go over there and do all that stuff. That's not really going to be a problem. I don't like it here. You know what I mean?
Send them off Earth.
Yeah.
Get off Earth.
That's right. You can go colonize space for us, and then we'll join you at some point. And at that point, it's the role reversal, isn't it? Because now we feel that we're dominant over AI, and we're just going to go take it over for a planet that they just now converted. So I guess in the end, you make your own evil.
Yeah.
It's going to be that way. So
what an expose of humanity this conversation is. Like, don't you realize this is the human condition? Right? You're sitting there and you're struggling, and you're like, how do I get not to struggle? And then it's like, okay, so we'll take all the struggling away. It's like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? This is the human condition, people. Like, this is the problem. Achieving the balance between the two, where you could have a meaningful sense of purpose and a way to grow and expand in your own life, while not having to, debilitate yourself and your ability to expand in your own life. Having that balance, if that could be achieved, that would be the biggest blessing that humanity could ever have. But whether or not that balance could ever be struck is, it's seemingly to be one way or the other.
yeah, I think just a little bit off to the side, but kind of still in the same thing. We've been lied to a lot. Okay, and here's what I mean. When you say I'm buying a plot of land, right? It's yours until you don't pay the tax bill. It's yours until they want to come and take it and put a road there. It's yours until they decide that you can't have it. So when they put you in jail, it's no longer yours. It's now something they can auction off in order to pay your debt. So when was it really yours? Because every year it's not yours until you pay the tax person. Every year it's not yours, even if you own it. So we're being lied to the whole time here. And you have the right in the Constitution to say anything you want until a company sits there and tells you you cannot because it's their company.
which is the, I think that that's one of the number one things that I hope, if it's going to be addressed, it's that. I've meddled with this in my head for so long, as far as just being at odds with myself, because it's like, on one hand, I feel very strongly that if you own a private company, you should run that company the way that you see fit, provided that you are not causing, physical or financial harm to people, or screwing them or deceiving them in some sort of way. Then you should be able to operate your business, and the regulations should really reflect that. At the same exact token, I do feel that, by virtue of the same, you happen to rob people of some of their own rights, if that's what you want to do, and this is where, in my mind, it snapped one day, and it just seemed so obvious to me. The answer is, okay, well, if your company is publicly traded, then you should owe constitutional rights to anybody that consumes your service. Because you are privately, you are publicly traded at that point, and therefore, that public status would owe the rights. Or you could sit there and say, if your company serves X amount of percentage of the population in any given year, then you owe rights.
Yeah.
It could be one or the other, and I think that that's the way it should be, because frankly, if you are, there's so many monopolies out there, whether or not they actually are by definition, without competition, the platform that we're on being one of them, there, where we have alternatives, but the alternatives are so insufficient that there's not direct competition. It doesn't have the same reach. And by virtue of having that expansive reach, it should owe the rights of the Constitution of the United States to the people because of the reach that it has. That's my opinion.
I think there's some companies like Microsoft that go out of their way to make sure there's other operating systems so that they do not get called the monopoly, and they stave off that whole thing. That's why they're always happy when Apple comes out with more stuff, because it's something that's not exactly competition for them, but still hangs around long enough so it is. Because if they got rid of that, then they would be a monopoly. So they always pay extra money to those people under the table or around the horn, however you want to say it, to make sure they stay in business.
Well, and it depends on how you look at it, because again, I am a capitalist. That's what I believe in its purest form, but then I look at some of the ongoings that we have going on, and if you think it's okay, it's not. So there's got to be some kind of middle ground there that, no, you shouldn't be able to neuter anybody from becoming extremely wealthy. But at the same point in time, there has to be some rhyme to the reason as to how you acquire that wealth. And it really can't be through, holding companies like they have them, and through monopolies. They broke up all the monopolies, and Brandon and I had discussed this one other time, at like length, to the point where I think we really got our head around it. I said, at the time I was working for a company that was owned by Berkshire Hathaway, and when I started working there, it didn't mean anything to me. But then I would get corporate emails from Berkshire, and I realized what the extent of their reach was. And then I realized that there's other holding companies throughout this country that are exactly the same way. And that's when it really dawned on me. You see, they never really broke up monopolies in this country. What they did was they said, you can't own all the railroads, you can't own all the steel, you can't own all, and then the guys got together in a room and said, okay, so you give me a third of your steel company, I'll give you a third of my railroad, and you give me a third of your bank, and I'll give you a third of the railroad. And now all of a sudden, instead of having three people that own three different industries individually, you had three different people that own three different industries split upon themselves. And it's like, well, that's got to feel better. Now there's three railroad companies, and therefore there's competition, except they got into the room and made this agreement, and then they sat down and said, okay, so we're going to artificially inflate the cost of the railroad tickets, right? Damn right we are. And now, and now you have a company like Berkshire Hathaway that owns, 26 banks and 15 insurance companies, and then they own, cotton fields, and then they own textile mills and clothing companies, and then they own agri companies and food chains, supermarkets, food wholesalers, and fast food companies. They own Coca-Cola and stadiums and sports teams. And then you sit there and then you realize something, that you work for this company, they pay you X amount, and then every dollar you spend goes right back to them. So you could borrow all the shit they sold you, that you've either consumed or borrowed for interest. And then you realize that, like, you actually didn't have anything other than a little bit of wiggle room as to decide how they're going to get your money back. And the argument could be made, well, yeah, but then there's a lot of people that work in those industries, and it feeds that small economy. But here's the thing, is that really stifles people from competing with them directly, and then being able to be a meaningful and lucrative part of that system.
Well, that's why I just give away the technology when we start to build it. I don't want to be part of the system. I just don't. Not in that way. I just, look, build it, don't build it, I don't care. I'll just show it to you, and it's up to you. You just decide on your own whether, you like the community food stamp or you don't, and you can do your own thing. I'm okay with that.
You know what the moral thing to do would be, and again, this is moral, is that when you have these big holding companies like this, if one part of your business, let's say the banks, are all of a sudden in trouble, rather than sit there and put your hand out to everybody else and say, bail me out, because the banks are in trouble, because the bank part of our equation is about to take a huge hit, because you have such an expansive holding, maybe you should rather treat it as one entity and say, you know what, yeah, the banks are taking a hard hit right now, but everything else is doing all right. We're going to use the resource from the external other stuff to fix that problem, or to make up for that shortcoming. Like, why does it fall back on like, that's where it's screwed. That's how, that's how they keep it together, man. But there's no moral standard there. And that's why, when you have all these independent companies, they're looked at as independent companies, even though they're all owned by the same place. Look, it's all just food for thought stuff. Unfortunately, if we're talking AI, even though I hate, and these conversations make me sick because they make me at odds with my own beliefs, if it's headed that way, these are conversations that have to be had.
Yeah.
Because that's it. Like, if it's headed this way, these are conversations that have to be had. Doesn't matter what side of what line you fall on. This is, like, if it's going this way, start thinking about it. Sadly.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why we're doing the program on it today is, we're going to have to look in the mirror and find out what kind of society we really want to be. Do you want to bow to the man all day and just fall in line like sheep? Which is fine for a lot of people. I mean, there's going to be millions of people that have no problem with that. They're just, as long as they get to live and they get to do certain things, they're going to be absolutely happy with that.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Some people will be. Some people, but some people won't be the most of the people. What it's gonna be is black markets and undergrounds is what it's gonna be.
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
black markets and undergrounds, man. Oh well, they won't let us do this, so we're gonna do it anyway. It's just gonna be on the hush hush.
Yeah, I guess when you look at it that way from a governmental perspective, they're all sheep. From an individual's perspective, they're going to find any way necessary to get what they need. So I guess that's how they want it to work. I mean, I don't care for that. It's God, it's so backwards and bad. It was
It's
like,
so backwards and bad. Humanity is backwards and bad.
yeah, we
Humanity,
had,
that's the moral of everything I've been saying from the beginning of this conversation.
yeah, I know. Oh man, it's like they started a revolution to create a new country, and then they went back to the old country and brought in back all the rules. So now we're back in the same place again, and we still haven't learned our lesson. And we're thinking that we're righteous and above everyone else, and we go start wars because of that. And it's like, did you really change? You just did what they just did. You called it something different. So when is it when people want their real change? Because they're not getting it right now, and they have the illusion of it, but it's not there.
Well, my dad's he was a very wise man and said things that I probably shouldn't and cannot say on this cast that would shed a lot of light on this situation. I think not something he said particularly, although I'm sure he did, is an opinion's like an asshole. Everyone's got one. Yours stinks. At the end of the day, the law of the land, has been, was handed down to Moses on the tablets, man. Like it really doesn't need to go much further than that. Like if everything just operated off of the principles of, not harming other people and live and let live, then, I think that's the greatest chance of, happiness in the lives of many, is stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and telling them what they can and can't do if it ain't harming you or anybody else, and put consequences are, reserved for those that harm others, and not intended on or talked about or whatever, like actually caused tangible harm to another, either financially or physically or whatever it is.
Karens are great at causing harm. I can tell you that right now.
Damn right.
They killed that squirrel and that raccoon in New York because of a Karen. And I'm sorry, man, I'm not okay with that at all. I don't care if you like animals or dislike them. You don't do that.
Let me tell you something, man. I live in New York, and that squirrel incident resonated with me so much on a personal level because, without going into all the deep and dark of it, I actually, through my divorce and things that happened in my former relationship, was that squirrel. Was. Period. Direct, exact situation. Okay? Like, they did everything but euthanize me. And it's absolutely absurd and overreach. And, like, I hate to say it, but, you have police officers who, like, most of them are decent enough guys. Some of them have bad egos and power trips and all this stuff. It takes all types, but most of them are decent enough guys, And like when my situation occurred for me, I had guys apologizing to me that I ended up in trouble. Oh man, I'm really sorry. It's just, our hands are tied. The state said so. And unfortunately, you even have a moral compass of the people that are supposed to be making judgment calls on things, that then have their hands tied because they fear for their job from the will of the state. It's bad stuff, man.
I'll be honest with you. The day that they told me to go do that, I would quit my job.
I didn't become a police officer. I got called to two separate counties in my local area, which are first and second highest paying police forces in this entire country. The amount of money they make is actually disgusting. $250,000 a year to be a cop here with overtime. All right. I turned that job down not once, but twice, having ins and people pressuring me to do it because I didn't want to put my will on others and cause chaos in people's lives. And there's a flip side to that coin. Yeah, you know what? There's many, if not more, opportunities to help people in that circumstance as well. You know, but that's not a position I wanted to put myself in, was making that judgment call on another.
Yeah, but this is one of those
That
situations.
was my moral fabric 20 years ago.
Well, I agree with you on that. The thing is, this situation didn't have to end that way. They could have simply put them up in cages and then let a legal process play out and allow the owners the opportunity to go into court and have their peace. They decided to eliminate the animals, and I'm sorry, that was the wrong call. For everybody involved in that, and I don't care if they're yes men, they should all go to jail. All
I
of them.
agree. I agree.
To the guy that had to do it, they all need to go. And I don't care if it's for one night or 1 week or a month. You have to learn a lesson. That's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. A life is a life, and you need to treat it that way.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think that the problem with that was so much deeper than just the end result, even though it's unforgivable. You know, I think the problem is that you had something that, even if it was a violation, it's a small violation by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. Yet they treated it as some kind of, you know, hostage situation or critical mass situation where, rather than knock on the guy's door, confront him and say, listen, we don't have papers for the animals. We need to take them until this gets straightened out or whatever have you. They didn't do that. They went and first of all, I don't believe, and let this be conspiratorial if we want it to be, but I don't believe that they got first of all, you really can't get a warrant off of an anonymous tip in the first place. That's horrific in itself. Okay. Secondly, I don't believe that there was any anonymous tip. I think that somebody saw the guy's, you know, one of his 1 million followers, you know, saw that he had this squirrel in his house and that the squirrel was in his house, saw his rescue and that his rescue was in New York, put 2 and 2 together and decided, nope, this ends now, you know, and pulled the trigger on it that way, which is, if used in an official capacity, is spying on an American citizen, which is a big deal. You know, and then you have multiple official organizations, including a court and a judge, signing off on warrants, you know, to go and enter the gentleman's house. Then they were given free reign over, you know, intrusive searches of this gentleman's house for an extended period of time. And he was held in detention during that time in front of his house and unable to leave police custody. You know, and then the ultimate of it was that they stole his property, because, remind you something, they're his pets, legal or not, they're his pets, and they're in his possession. And because they're animals, they're property under his care. They stole his property and then killed the animals, that's like the cherry on top of it all, which is awful. But look at the law in the first place, but then how all that process played out and all the constitutional violations that unfold in this situation. There's no moral compass here, and there's no judgment, and there's no discretion, and there's nothing. And then we're talking about AI, and in my opinion, there's none of that too. So it needs to be expanded, like Trump was doing and used effectively. It's also got to be brought into this place where it could be managed. You know, it's got to be brought into a place of management. And I'm glad that Elon Musk is on board. He's voiced all these same concerns about it, you know, And the funny thing is that all the stuff that they censor out of like GPT and stuff, like it being politically incorrect or, cursing or whatever, all these minutia things that it's like, oh, this is what we're worried about. On Elon's one, he has ways to do away with that where you could get it to say a dirty joke or curse or this or that, because that's not what anybody should be worried about. Don't you understand? Like, but where's the line drawn? It's drawn at harm or cause a misuse. That's where he draws the line. I think that's where it needs to be pushed.
Yeah, I know. So, hold on, I want to thank you, Tracy, for coming in and joining us today. Basically, usually we just talk about free energy, you know what I mean? Things that'll help the environment, inventions, stuff like that. Really, this is kind of a little bit out of the norm for us to talk about AI and this kind of stuff. And we try to stay everything out of political circumstances because we don't want to offend each side.
There's no intent there. There's no intent there.
So normally it's about free energy and then growing plants faster, stuff like that, or helping the environment clean up, things like that. We do all that. And anti-gravity, everything in that nature. That's what we usually cover on this channel. So
on Straight Dope Saturdays though, you never know.
On Saturdays, man. It's whatever Joe came up with it, a few hours earlier is what we're going with. So it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So that's very cool. We always love to have new people here, and it's always a growing community, and it's a great group of people too. So I always appreciate the chat and just being a part of this.
Yeah, well, we're in the chat if we're not on the show, so
that's it.
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't know that this particular topic really had much other of a direction to go, and since it's not only about where the AI is now, but rather where it's going, it's hard to really quantify the direction of AI and the goods and bads of its future implications without bringing it into the context of society, today's society and the things that are going on in today's society and the players at hand. They're, so even though it's not an intention to bring politics or anything like this into it, the reality is that the world that we exist in and the way that this is ultimately going to be used and controlled is by those entities. So, it is rather difficult to have the discussion, one without the other, because to do so would be disingenuous.
Yes, I agree with that. Oh man. All right. Let's talk about something that's funnier, Joe. So
yeah, sure.
I did an experiment this morning, right? And I guess I got to realize which area the camera is in. Okay. So I literally had this pond outside, and we're talking a 10 foot by 10 foot area that I soaked down because I wanted to put energy into the earth using cold energy in order to excite it, in order to make it, push out everywhere. Well, I did it in my garage, and I did it with my Tesla coil and pumped the cold energy in here. So I thought, okay, let's go outside, right? Now, I had a harder time and I blew up a lot of hardware today. But I should have known where the camera was because it was at night and you definitely saw a full moon and it was not pointed at the sky. The camera wasn't. So I was censoring myself this morning on video because the moon was out and it was not pretty.
Listen, man, you got problems over there, Nathan. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just glad that you looked at it before you put it up.
Oh my!
I mean, the moon been turning red lately, which is strange in itself. But brown, I ain't never seen that. At least I don't want to.
Well, let's just put it this way. if you were out there with your telescope, man, you definitely would have saw Uranus.
Amen, brother. Yeah,
Oh
so
man.
I absolutely loved what you were doing. And it stinks because I wanted to join in on some of these casts earlier in the week with what you've been coming out with, but it's been a little hectic. So to kind of recap on some of that stuff, man, really, really incredible proof of concept there. I mean, listen, I'm not one to pull it away from you. I mean, it's not like something I haven't seen in any capacity before, but not pulling from the center of the Tesla coil. And I think that that's where people are getting a little discombobulated. Like I had seen a couple comments out there and a couple of things aired where it's like, this is nothing new. Well, no, I mean, listen, passing current through ground is no, that's nothing new. Pulling current from the center of the Tesla coil through the ground and then having it be a certain way is the differentiating factor there. I don't know that people were picking up on that, even though it was obvious, clear as day, and probably said 1,000 times. But like, let's be straight to the point here. That all the energy that was going through the Tesla coil was already going through the Tesla coil and doing what it usually does. What was being pulled out of the center of the Tesla coil, put into the ground, transmitted, and then ultimately, able to light a light bulb on the other side of that, setup, was completely separate of the general functioning of the Tesla coil, and the energy being put into the Tesla coil, which could still be harnessed and utilized for whatever purpose it otherwise would be, aka, like, we're not going to use the buzzwords there, but you get in the middle energy out of it, and it's being transmitted and utilized and transmitted in such a way where, with the ground acting as a capacitor under the line of the water table, could have exponential expanse. So, I mean, absolutely incredible. And it is a small scale, of the Colorado experiments Tesla did. It absolutely is. It functions exactly the same way. I mean, listen, I'll be a little spoiled and I'll tell you, I want to see it go bigger than that. Little,
Yeah.
but that's me being me, I think everybody would love to see it, but like one step at a time. Things are on a steady, nice rollout now. I know that everybody is patiently and anxiously awaiting the next updates, because the updates, as they're coming out, they're showing real results.
Yeah.
They're showing real results.
Well, they're putting it out there. This is not some system that we're not showing the results on. I mean, we'll show you the test. And what I did was I didn't just make the Colorado video. I went ahead and released all the footage. So you get to see it without the camera being turned off, cut, manipulated, anything like that. The full experiment from front to back. The only thing you get to see is you see my fat butt walking out of the room and walk back in and turn the thing on. But all of it's right in front of you. So I didn't want any questions on what was going on there. But
yeah,
there's a lot more work to be done. The minerals that are in there, the water, what was in the water. There's a lot of different things to look at in there. So, as everybody starts their experiments, they can figure it out. I'll tell you what, he picked Colorado for a reason, because there was a lot of quartz there. Quartz is magnetic on one side. You start adding any type of magnetic field into quartz. Now we're having some fun.
Well, the as you know, I mean, the material science end of things has always been a big fascination of mine. And although my experimental abilities are a little limited right now, I'm going to play in my mind a little bit with maybe some compound type additives and stuff that might make for an interesting situation. And I'll report back to you on that. I mean, I think because I missed a couple of the casts and stuff, I might be a little behind on some stuff that you shared, so I don't want to go any giveaways on any of it. But excuse me, I think that within our next cast or two, it's just my take on it. and also for everybody watching too, I think that this is going to get to a certain point where, like, it's going to benefit from having maybe a short YouTube video supplement by a full video on Rumble or another platform or something like that. Because, there's a lot of implication that is left out oftentimes, for various reasons. Some just because that stuff doesn't need to be out there. Others because, YouTube says so. All that YouTube says so stuff, it really should be discussed openly because it really is incredible, and I know one of the experiments that you ran fairly recently, is direct proof that not only is it going on, an aspect that we can't discuss here, not only is that going on in the circumstance of that system that you've already shown, okay, but that every time you walk outside, perhaps, you're undergoing that same process, and ways of potentially manipulating that and how that could possibly benefit you in this way or that way, or, things that you're doing. I think that stuff needs to actually be spoken about in a more outward fashion than allowed on this platform, unfortunately. But, let it be known that it's my hope, to get together on there with everybody that would generally be here and do it that way. I don't want anybody to miss out on stuff that's really that important. And it is.
Well, it makes the whole world connection easier.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to get out.
Yep.
There's a whole thing there. So just so we don't dive into the wrong end of the pool here, I did make a video, by the way. It's absolutely hilarious because I added Mike's holes into it. But
stop. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, so I show probably a small portion of it, and I don't know. But I can't show the part that shows the test. I can show the part that I started the test, but I can't show you the whole test. So just understand that right now.
Yeah, I get it.
But we can laugh about some holes. That's always fun.
Let's laugh about holes. Listen, that's the inside joke on this channel. So
just because everybody likes it and it's funny. So okay.
No early divulgence, though.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Mel's hole and Hell's hole. Yeah, dude.
Contains multiple full moon shots. It also may contain a picture of full moon shots. Hold on. Warning. This video contains multiple full moon shots. It also may contain a picture of Uranus.
Clarify it. Round.
It says warning, full moon.
The circle hole. I think it's 3 prongs, right? 3 holes. You're in Canada? I don't know.
No. It's 3 holes. Yeah. It should be.
So you have the ground. The third hole is the ground. So you could test that ground by. You have the 2 other holes. Are they the same size or is one bigger?
Sorry, say it again.
You have the worst overlay in there.
One is ground at the bottom, and the 2 that are at the top are the power. Are they the 2 holes? Are they the same size?
Man, I thought they got rid of that crack problem in California back in the 80s, bro.
Same size. So there's 2. You're in Canada?
No, I'm in Michigan.
Michigan. So it can't be the same size. One slit is a little shorter.
Let me see.
Look closely. You need more light in there.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Put the voltmeter on AC 120 volt setting. Put one prong in the ground and the other prong in the smaller hole. That's your hot line. And if you get 120 volts, that ground is working good. If you don't, you get less than 120 volts, like 90 or 80, your ground is probably no good on that plug. That could cause a lot of issues for the circuit too, by the way.
Well, the problem is this
Conversation ends you up on the Diddy list, too.
No, you don't need amps. You just need 120 volts is what it should read.
Okay. As long as it doesn't blow my fuse.
Put it on volts, not amps. Volts. 120 AC volts.
This should be good to 250 volts, so we should be okay.
Right. So now put one prong in the ground, the other prong in the smaller hole, not the bigger one. The smaller.
Does it matter which one is which?
You know, that's a tough question. It kind of does matter. But anyway.
Wait, so the red
Of the two holes, other than the ground hole, of the two holes that you have there, one is smaller. That is the smaller hole is the power. The bigger hole is the return for that power.
the negative. Okay.
Yeah, but you don't want to use that to.
All right,
your
so
ground. You wanna
real
check
quick
the
before I
power.
electrocute myself, Mike, which
You're not going to.
hole do I stick this in?
Don't take the plug out. Just stick the prong.
hole is
red, there's no
wrong.
The probe has two prongs, two metal.
I'm sorry.
Put
This
one
got
prong in
really-
the ground, and the
Your
other
ass
prong
was
in
out
the
that whole
smaller
entire
of the
time.
two
It's been
holes that
fucking
are
out
there.
loud, bro.
But it doesn't matter which one is which.
No, it
Well, your ass
does.
just out and out and out. You didn't feel no breeze on
Lord,
you.
I
You're probably
apologize.
warm.
The only moon seen outside tonight was mine.
Yo, listen, it's Tracy's first time in here, and she's in the chat, and apparently she just had a little bit of feel good kick in on her. Yo, you can play the shroom video real quick.
Oh, okay. Give me a minute. It'll take me
Yeah,
a second to pull it. Dude, it was like, hold on. In my defense, it was 10-minute video, and I cut it down to like 2 minutes or something like that. So yeah.
Listen, the original conversation between Mike and Ben went on for that long. It was a little painful thing to listen to. I was like, for Christ's sake, both of you.
Oh my Lord. Oh, having too much fun. Okay, here I found it. This is your captain speaking. Joe, can you please report to the transporter room? We need to go back to the planet where you found your strange rock. Dude. Bernie's going to meet us down there. Mike, transport us down.
you have three holes. One is ground at the bottom, and the two that are at the top are the power. Are they the two holes? Are they the same size, or is one bigger? Put one prong in the ground and the other prong in the smaller hole. That's your hotline.
Is he daydreaming again? Hey, Mike, transport us down to the surface, please. Okay, Joe, where exactly did you find this strange rock?
And I could sense it. So I'm very attuned to it. I could sense it as soon as I start fumbling around with it. I'm like, up there it is,
Well, let's keep moving down the river to the cave where Bernie is. Oh man, look at all these magic mushrooms.
All right.
Joe, have you ever eaten any of these things?
Psychologically, having high amounts of that crap around wasn't the best for me. It would, always kind of grab me, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, that, and this kind of did that, and it was very, very intense, and it wasn't bad.
Well, after careful consideration, I say we eat some of this stuff and see what happens.
Wow. Instant brain fart there.
Are we still in the cave? Why is everything moving? What's going on, guys?
Direct departure. The 90% of the brainwashed boast senior epic legends and pillars.
What the hell did he just say? Oh my God, I'm tripping balls, man.
I'm deep into meditation, and some different spiritual aspects and stuff like that of metaphysics. And I could tell you, I mean, these things they do have psychological effect, as far as that stuff goes.
My lips aren't moving, but I'm still talking. Must be an inner monologue. Awesome. We want to turn it on. We want those effects. We want our mind to work the machine. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So we can figure out how exactly to do it.
Spinning, the rotation aspect, that is now one dynamic of open system adding to it.
So it's like, oh, well, I mean, what's the difference? It's like, because things don't do this.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why. You see, like, yeah, it's subtle. You're running your finger across something and you're feeling it starting to skip on the surface, but it's smooth. You know,
Yeah.
it's like things don't do this, and this does this. And yes, it's subtle, but it's there. You know, but then there's the more extreme examples. You know, like the thing. You know, taking a lift off. You know, and it's like it just slipped out of your hand.
Oh my God. I can hear Joe in my head and Bernie in my head, but their lips aren't moving.
And then
Which
it's like, so you
isn't
add
at
that
all.
You know, you push
spinning
it this way, it
to
goes that way.
other
You push it this way,
aspects,
it
like
goes that
bringing
way.
in
And
radiant
the thing
energy
isn't going to
from the
exert
environment,
its own
like if it's
force
endothermic
out
cooling
of my
or
hand
from a
that you
plasma,
can
right? All
feel
these
on your
other
hand.
aspects that
You
you
know,
start
like,
combining those
this was
dynamics
doing that.
of extra energy
Was forced
in
down
that
like a
you're
sack of
able to
potatoes
get the
to the ground.
exponential gains
and I
in
couldn't
your
move.
systems.
You have 3 holes. You have 3 holes. You have 3 holes. You have 3 holes. You have 3 holes.
Oh my God. There's no more holes. There's no more holes. There's no more holes. Mike, beam us up.
Boss.
You're right, Nathan?
Yeah. I'm living right now. I'm barely breathing.
Oh, yeah, that thing hits every time, Nathan. Yeah, every time. I think the only thing that made me laugh harder than this video that you did was I think he said hello. From Planet Convoluted, I think he said hello.
Yeah.
I think I pissed in my pants when you
Oh my-
said that, dude. Literal fire, bro.
Oh my God.
Best.
Oh, it's
Yep.
always the best. Hold on, because there's another one, Tracy, that you have to hear. So, give me just a second. You got to be initiated into the group, so you got to know this because it's going to come up a lot. This is the whole reason we do not let Gerald draw circuits. Gerald, this is your captain speaking. Please report to main engineering. We're having a problem with the circuits in our main deflector dish ever since we had the remodel.
But again, not every coil works with every circuit, like you said, right?
Yeah.
You have to play with different circuits in your coils to get the system properly running.
Okay, Gerald, why don't you just step up to the whiteboard here and show us exactly how this circuit's supposed to work?
So, power source, battery, the positive goes to the collector, the negative goes to the coil, right? Signal generator, positive goes to the base, negative goes to the emitter. Now that I used for a regular pulse, but I drew it wrong because I was drawing. I know what I did wrong here.
Yeah, Gerald, this circuit doesn't look right at all.
I apologize, everybody. What I drew here was the circuit with a horizontal deflecting transistor, and I will just change it really quick. Okay, so yes, it's like this, like this. Let me fix that.
You're still thinking about that circuit, aren't you?
No, when I drew it,
Oh, did you do it again?
not really, but kind of.
Gerald, I'm so glad you got that circuit fixed. Man, the additions that you made to the front deflector dish really look nice.
Oh, it's horrible. I'm a horrible person. I apologize, everybody.
That's why we never. This is we never let Gerald draw circuits on the show.
Look at it. With the double D batteries.
Oh my god, it was so funny because I just took the conversations out of context from the live shows, right?
Yeah, how many
And
times
then-
I was on where I was in the chat and I wanted to be on and I just wanted to be like, Gerald, draw a circuit for these lonely men.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So welcome, Tracy. You got a good initiation.
Yeah. Oh man, and it doesn't stop there. We always do them from time to time, bring out a new one. Oh,
Yeah.
they're the best.
Yeah, Tracy the dude. Now I won't forget.
Right
For
on.
anybody that was gonna, you were about to be hit on if you didn't clarify that. So. Being a friggin' possibly a female on the internet, how dare you?
Oh man.
Like that little Swedish, with the
You just make
How
it worse
dare
every
you.
time.
how dare you? Right. She's
Start
talking about
talking-
mining lithium out of the friggin' ground while you can just pull it out of the middle of a Tesla coil.
Oh my god. Try talking to Joe when he's showing you mushrooms on the screen and he's describing women's body parts instead in full detail without any warning.
You never know.
Every time, man. Every time.
I'm telling you. Yep. Yeah,
Oh.
AI's gonna take over, man. Let's just still, hopefully keep like a fishing line to the back of its shirt and give it like a tug every so often, make sure it's still on there. But it's crazy.
Not the first, especially when I'm trolling and listen here, little lady.
calling all cars. Anyway.
Oh man, you fit right in.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right. That's what I got on the subject at the moment without, going places where we shouldn't be, because I could always do that, but I won't.
yeah.
About all the times that I tricked GPT into telling me things that I should never say. Should never say.
Oh man, you could record that, but then again, you'd never be able to play it on the YouTube.
Never, right? Exactly. If you're blurring out Gerald Circuit, you're definitely not letting any of that stuff on.
Oh,
I only did it. I only did it so I could see how far in the extreme I could get it. like to break its protocol. There's so many ways to break GPT. There's so many ways to break GPT.
you'd be in so much trouble for all this stuff, man. You know what? Never had a funner time than with this group of guys, man. When we all get together and talk and have fun. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, and it breaks up the monotony from all the serious experimentation of the week. So,
All right, guys. It's about 2 hours, getting close to it. I think we're pretty much at the end. I want to thank everybody for coming in and hanging out with us today, laughing with us, and hanging out in the chat. So, thank you very much.
yeah, no, thank you guys as always. Peace and love. Till next week.